Hi, Scott. Scott, you there? Hmm, that shouldn't be the case. Okay.
Hello,
Hi there.
how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good.
Scott, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
There we go.
How's it going?
Is it
We're
from
good,
me or
man.
your voice is a bit low? Is it from my computer?
What's that, Rindala? Hi, Olivia.
Hi.
Just giving people some time to join.
Yeah.
God, your hair is longer than mine.
Oh, I know. Look, I shave, not shave. Um, I got a buzz cut basically on January 1st, 2021. That was the last haircut I got.
Okay, so going on 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah.
Nice.
Some decent growth.
Oh, thanks. Looks even more ridiculous when I have my normal beard length. But
I've seen your profile picture on
yeah,
LinkedIn.
I shaved the other day though, so
Yeah.
just been really into that.
Given what I know about your beard, you probably shaved like 5 minutes ago, and that's what it
Yeah.
looks like
Yeah, this morning. Yeah.
now. Scott, you did a like a Tequila Tuesday earlier tonight, right?
I just did, yeah.
Yeah, so back to back.
I know.
Coming in a little buzzed. That's probably good.
I limited myself to one cocktail
Yeah,
prior to being here.
very fair.
Well, I didn't know that was an option. I can go fix one now.
Always an option, Stephen. Always.
Please go for it, Steven. I helped myself to one right before this too.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have another right here.
Mhm.
I feel like, when you're doing things to better yourself, but it's also like 7 p.m. where I am, or I've earned this,
Yeah, I feel the same way.
earned the right to imbibe a little bit.
I think we've all earned that. Welcome, everybody, as you're joining. Probably get started in earnest in maybe a couple minutes or so.
Where's the group from primarily, Ben? All over the world or what?
All over the world, if people if you feel like it, people could throw in where they are, maybe in the chat, and we can see where people are. But typically all over the place. Okay. This is our inaugural Flex Talk. So very, very excited about this.
No pressure on me. Jeez, Louise.
That's right. All right. I think people will likely, actually, they're continuing to trickle in, but we can also get started. Welcome, everyone. We're super happy that you could join us. This is a Flex Talk. I just mentioned, for those that were already in the meeting, this is the first event that we're doing specifically for Bravado community members who are interested in owning their own schedules, working from wherever they want or wherever you want, and leveraging your sales expertise and Rolodex. What you might not know, one thing that you all have in common, perhaps with the exception of Scott, is you've all opted into our new product, Bravado Flex. So we're super happy and grateful that you did that. Welcome to the party. Most of you, I would imagine at this point, you probably don't recognize my face. You might recognize my name. I'm Ben Bronster. I'm the head of new product development here at Bravado. Also from the Bravado team is Olivia. Olivia, maybe if you want to say hi or at least wave. Yeah. But either way, we are thrilled to be joined today by the one and only Scott Leese. So Scott, how's it going?
Going good. Nice to see you again, Ben and Olivia. Nice to meet all the rest of you.
Awesome. So for those that don't know, I hope I can say this, Scott is kind of a big deal. He's a 6-time sales leader, 3-time founder. He spent the last 20 years building and scaling sales organizations at some of the fastest growing tech startups in the world. He's also maybe the single most qualified person out there when it comes to talking about starting a sales side hustle the right way. In 2019, Scott, he cut his own W-2 cord, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and launched his own consulting business, which I believe, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, you've scaled to over 5 million in revenue since then.
That's right. Yeah.
So again, Scott, thanks for being here. Do you feel like I missed anything there that you might want to highlight? You want to toot your own horn at all?
No, the rest of the things that I've done, it just starts to sound obnoxious. So we can skip over all that. Somebody can drop my LinkedIn profile in there, and if somebody wants to take a look at what I've done, what I'm up to, have at it. So. Yeah, and we're still, we will certainly share a LinkedIn profile and other resources with everyone here and cool.
And others afterward. Okay, so today we're talking about, Scott, in your words, cutting the W-2 cord. But I think before we go any further, when you say cutting the W-2 cord, what does that mean? What do you mean?
It really means taking back control of your own life and your career and your income and your employment / job security. It means no longer relying upon others for your well-being and that of your family. And I think in particular over the last few years, there's been so many global events that have exposed a lot of people who have been reliant upon one income stream, the judgment of founders and CEOs and leaders that is sometimes questionable at best. And so, I am a big proponent of starting to take control of your own destiny. And even if you're not full-time doing your own thing, slowly kind of chipping away at that and eliminating the reliance upon, this W-2, which I've been reminded is potentially only an American or North American kind of thing, but it means working for somebody else as a full-time employee.
Yeah, so thanks for the context. Clearly, it seems like you were maybe a little ahead of the curve here, but certainly I think as the economic downturn continues and more salespeople continue to miss their numbers, not necessarily because of any fault of their own. And so many of us probably in this Zoom meeting have been impacted or seen our friends impacted by layoffs. I do think that this is perhaps one of the most important times in recent years to be having a conversation like this.
Yeah.
Or even to level yourself up at skills related to doing this. But I also think a lot of people, they might point to macroeconomic factors as a reason to not start or a reason to not go into business for yourself right now. Like when you hear that, like what comes to mind?
Well, I mean, my first reaction is you couldn't be more wrong.
Mhm.
I think most people would be shocked how easy it is to replicate your current base salary. And I don't know where people fall in their experience spectrum in terms of who's on this call or who might listen to it one day.
Yeah.
But if you were able to generate $5,000 a month, that's a $60,000 base salary. That's roughly like a early-ish kind of AE or advanced kind of SDR salary right now.
Mhm.
That's one client paying you $5,000 a month for some work, two clients paying you $2,500, or five people paying you $1,000.
Yeah.
And the amount of work you put in to your current W-2 day job to make a $60,000 base salary is absolutely massive, frankly, compared to the work that you could put in through other means to replicate this particular base salary. And even if you have a big base salary or a big OTE, I'm looking at James Willis. I'm going to pick on James for a second. I don't know anything about James, but he's staring right at me. So I'm going to pick on him. Let's say James makes $250,000 a year. Okay. That's roughly 20,000 a month, a little bit more than 20,000 a month. Pretty good. Can James get 4 clients to pay him $5,000 a month to replicate this salary? He probably would spend a couple hours with each client a week. That's it. And then he could do whatever the heck else he wants to do with his day and time. If he's got kids, spend more time with them. If he likes to travel more, if he likes to go play golf all day, it's just not that hard. And people get kind of overwhelmed by, oh, I've got to instantly make 250,000, or I've got to instantly make 60K.
Yeah.
And you forget that you can chip away at this stuff. And the best way to think about it is, what can I do that would pay one bill for me next month? How do I get my cell phone bill paid next month? How do I get my heating and air conditioning electric bill paid? Everybody's electric bills are going to go way up this month because you got Christmas lights running 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
How do I get that paid for? Right. And that's how you kind of get started, I think, is you chip away at these things. What can I do to replicate some of the income to pay one bill? And that's a good place to start. Right. And when you're in economic times like these, where everybody's getting riffed left and right, you have no fucking clue if you're going to get fired tomorrow. Let's be honest, all of you.
Mhm.
Right. If you get laid off, you have nothing to fall back on right now, which is silly to me. So everybody should be starting all of this stuff. You should have some idea of what you can do, even if it's driving an Uber, even if it's, let's say James is a big golfer. Let's say James can give golf lessons to a couple people.
Yeah.
If you're a sales leader or you've been around in sales a long time, you can do some coaching. Can you pick up 1 or 2 people who are more junior than you, who pay you $250 a month to have a couple hours a week of kind of sales coaching, mentorship type relationship? Bang, that's $500 you just paid your AC bill if you live in my, or electricity bill at my house, right? And that's the way to start thinking about this stuff. And then, if your side income is down here and your, W-2 income is way up here, you just start chipping away until the side stuff gets all the way up here where your W-2 stuff is.
Yeah.
And then you might make the decision, you know what, I don't really need this W-2 job anymore. And I think that should be people's aim.
Yeah, I love the way you think about this and talk about it. You started that line of thought saying that you're not sure I think you called it the experience spectrum of the people here. From your perspective, how much experience do you think someone should have or needs to have before they try something like this?
It depends what you're going to try, right? Yeah. I mean, I'll pick on Nathaniel Dean next. Let's say Nathaniel Dean, grew up playing tennis like I did, or playing soccer like I did.
Yeah. He
could give some tennis lessons on the side. He's got experience doing that. But if he's never played tennis before, he can't go give tennis lessons. So if you've been in sales a long time, and you've got a proven track record of success, if you've got experience in excellence, then you are 100% qualified to talk to Stephen Harris, who maybe is brand new at sales.
Yeah.
And you can help navigate his situation a little bit. You don't have to charge him an arm and a leg. Would you take a couple calls a month, Nathaniel Dean, for $500 from Stephen Harris? Yes or no? Thumbs up. Bang.
There
You
you
just
go.
made $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year you just made. What can you do with $6,000 a year? Quite a bit for some people.
Yeah.
Right. So I think people need to first look at, what am I already good at? What do I already have experience in that would be helpful for somebody else to know?
Mhm.
And start there. Something that's easy, that's low lift, low effort, and possibly something that you already love doing. That is a great place to begin. But I'm not going to sit here and say you got to have 2 years experience in this, 5 years experience in that.
Mhm.
I don't know that the amount of time matters. What matters is, do you have experience and a track record of being good at this particular thing? And if so, then you're qualified to talk to certain people and give them, some guidance and advice. And that can be enough to get you started. And once you get started, whether it's guitar lessons or, some sales coaching or whatnot, what you start to realize is, wow, there's opportunity everywhere. And you start to look at different scenarios in the world a little differently.
Mhm.
And now your kind of entrepreneurial mind and spirit is opened up, and you start to say, oh, I could do this thing over here, Ben. Oh, I could do this thing over here, Olivia. I could partner up with Gustavo and we could do this because both of us are interested in soccer, and we could do this other thing. And now you're just starting to look at the world through an opportunistic lens, rather than a lens where I go to work every day and collect my salary and I'm at the beck and call of my boss.
Yeah.
One is a lot more empowering, if you ask me.
I would imagine, I certainly personally am interested. I would imagine a lot of us are interested to know a little bit more about your story. So you said one of the ways to get started is think about, okay, like what could cover one bill per month? Like, how did you get started on your side hustle journey, for lack of a better phrase?
Yeah, well, maybe it'd be helpful for people who don't know me to just give a little bit of background. I played 2 sports in college for 4 years, played some professional soccer for a little while. And then right before my 23rd birthday, I got really, really sick. And I spent the next 4 years in the hospital fighting for my life. Had 9 surgeries, 4 major abdominal surgeries, 2 emergency surgeries, got hooked on opioid medication while I was in the hospital. So it took me 4 years to get out of the hospital and recover physically. And then I had to kick off a dope. And so I'm 27 years old. I never had a fucking job before in my life that didn't involve playing sports or coaching, youth sports. That's how I got into sales. A friend of mine said, you should try sales. Like, you're hyper competitive. Athletes have been good at sales before. I was the captain of the soccer team, captain of the tennis team. My buddy Tony was like, you've got leadership skills. Like, you could be good at this. So I got into sales, was an AE, got promoted quick into sales leadership, hit the kind of glass ceiling of, you don't have enough experience to be a VP here. I'm like, adios, went somewhere else, got a VP gig, and then just started being a VP of sales over and over and over. After I'd done it 3 or 4 times, I started thinking to myself, there is a pattern here where I get tired of working for somebody else after about 2.5, 3 years. I'm tired of selling the same fucking product. I'm tired of listening to Olivia tell me what to do. I'm tired of Gustavo's bad decisions. I'm tired of Nathaniel's ineptitude. I'm tired of Ben's drama. You know what I'm saying? You've all been there, before. And so I started thinking, like, how do I get out of this? There's got to be something else other than starting a big, huge software company, because that's not what I wanted to do. And at the same time, I had just started kind of working on building a brand on LinkedIn and growing the size of my network. And so what happened is I started to have people reach out to me and say, hey, Scott, you've been a VP of sales a few times, scaling companies, can I pick your brain, and would you mind taking a phone call or 2? And I started saying yes to those things. And then I started to have people ask me if they could talk to me regularly and offer to pay me, a little bit. I didn't know what to charge. I literally said, $250 sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I had people peeling me for advice on how to build and scale a sales org for $250. That's how dumb I was about what my information and what my knowledge was worth. I had no idea how valuable, my time and experience and everything was. And so I started having a couple people pay me that. And then I started raising the price little by little, right? Then I had people tell me who had worked for me before, like, you have this sales methodology, you should really write a book about that methodology. So I decided to write a book. I wrote this book called Addicted to the Process, talks about the addiction model of selling, which is how I've always kind of taught. That book happened to do really well. That furthered my brand. I started to have people reach out about stuff for that. Then I started this business called Surf and Sales, this event sales conference thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just started slowly like adding on all of these things. None of them in and of themselves were a big, huge $1 million kind of business, but they were fun. I was enjoying them sometimes more than my main job.
Mm-hmm.
I started making a few $1,000s a month. And I started seeing a path through all these different streams to replicate what I was earning. I had some real estate holdings that I had bought, early on. I don't know if anybody here knows anything about property management and owning real estate, but if you have a property that is spitting a couple $100s a month in profit, that's pretty great, because you're also getting equity over time in the value of that home.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law at the time told me, if you can make $300 a month profit on a rental property with nice, easy tenants, that's a big win. So I racked up a few of those things. And so you start to put together this, puzzle, if you will, where all of these different rivers are funneling into the same ocean. Right. And that was how I thought about it. And I continue to kind of try to chip away and have all these different streams like that. I think I'm roughly at 14 or 15 different sources of income right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask how many different rivers flow into.
It's about 14 or 15. The average millionaire has 7 different streams of income. You've probably heard that quote before.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, depending on what you want to do with your life and what your goals are and what you're motivated by, if somebody says the average millionaire has 7 streams of income and you have 1, the fuck are you doing? You going to become a millionaire off of your marketing manager job? No, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to become a millionaire selling software? No. Are you going to become a millionaire being a VP of sales at a software company? It's possible, but very, very rare.
Mm-hmm.
So the income distribution in terms of the value you create and bring to the table is massively skewed. You're a VP of sales, you scale a company to $25, $50 million in ARR, that company is worth $1 billion. That company exits, that founder is walking away with hundreds of millions of dollars. If you're a VP of sales, you're making a couple. You trying to tell me this founder deserves $100 million and I deserve 1 million as a VP of sales? I just started to become very jaded with that story.
I
think there's a better way.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Fine.
It seems clear to me, Scott, that you love sales and the craft of sales. I'm curious, do you miss it at all? Do you miss being a VP of sales?
Well, I have sort of replicated that experience because I work with like a dozen or more clients at any given time. So I don't miss it. There's certain things that you can miss about working for yourself. I don't have a team, so I close a deal and I kind of look around at my dogs and be like, woohoo, high five. Yeah. Right. So I don't get to celebrate with all of you every time we close a deal and get that positive reinforcement. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit, no lies told here. There's a little bit of like, I'm not necessarily building something bigger than myself. You can get sucked into that kind of thinking where like, I'll pick on Bravado for the hell of it. It's like, I'm building Bravado. I'm building this like massive $1 billion like kind of thing. and it's bigger than just me. And, you know, you lose that experience a little bit, but you gain so much more that, you know, I'm kind of like, I really don't care about all that. So I don't really miss being a VP of sales. I don't miss being told that I have to fire 50% of my sales team. I don't miss being told what my quota is going to be without any conversation. I don't miss being told I have to adjust the comp plan on my salespeople when I don't fucking believe in it.
Mhm.
I don't miss the product team failing to deliver on their release dates, hanging me and my salespeople out to dry. I don't miss any of that stuff. Right. So for some people, the experience in terms of the career path, and this is kind of what I've been talking about, the career path can become break into sales, get good at sales, teach other people how to sell, find a way out to do this stuff for myself. Or it can be break into sales, get good at sales, break into sales leadership, get good at sales leadership, be a sales leader a few times over, build an even bigger, you know, sort of following and like credibility, a bigger resume, if you will, then go work for yourself and charge a bigger ticket. Because, you know, this kid who charged $250 a month at one point, now sometimes I charge $20,000 a month. Now you get 10, 12, 15 clients paying you $20,000 a month on your own terms. Show me a W-2 job that pays that.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
And you, fair. At least I can't think of one off the top of my head. That's for
There
sure.
really isn't one unless you're the CEO of, you know, fucking Disney or some big, huge megacorp,
Mhm.
right?
So you mentioned this all started with you developed a bit of a brand on LinkedIn, and people started reaching out, asking you for advice. And by the way, if people here and listening to this elsewhere don't know, Scott has quite a following on LinkedIn, about I believe 100,000 followers.
Yeah. Just yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How important do you think that is how important has it been for you? And how important do you think it is to cultivate that for people who are like earlier on in their, in that type of journey?
Well, there's two different aspects to the brand. The first aspect is literally just the size of your network. And everybody loves to shit on, it's not the size of your network, it's how engaged they are. Bullshit. Okay. If I'm a musician, I don't really want to go into a bar and perform in front of 5 people who are like my most dedicated fans.
Mm-hmm.
Put me in fucking Madison Square Garden in front of 50,000 people, even if only 5,000 of them are like psycho super fans of mine. Sorry, I'm going to do a lot better with a packed house. So I just looked at the size of my network as the number of people that I can possibly help, or the number of people that can possibly help me.
Mm-hmm.
And so early on, I was very focused on just growing my network, not on creating content, not talking about things I've done or sharing my experiences or any of that. It was very much just like, what's up, Ben? Looking to connect with other salespeople in Austin. Let me know if I can ever be helpful to you. That was my message. Off I go. And everybody would connect.
Yeah.
So that was where the journey kind of began, and it evolved over time into more of content creation and that type of thing. But it's absolutely essential in my mind. And it's essential because, let's be honest, nobody wants to cold call or cold email or cold DM or cold video prospect. Nobody wants to fucking prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest about it. It's hard. It's horrible. So building this brand on top of the experience that you have, now all of a sudden what happens is everything comes inbound. I've been, running my own businesses without working with the W-2 for over 3 years now. I have never prospected once. And that's the difference, is the inbound demand comes because of this network, because of the things that I put out and share. So it alleviates a lot of stress and time where someone might have to go out and build these campaigns to prospect and put together my pitch and all that kind of stuff. I don't have to do that. And so you've completely flipped the funnel. And I would argue that almost all of my business has come from LinkedIn and word of mouth and referrals and stuff like that. Almost all of it.
Mhm. So
the ROI is insanely massive.
Yeah. I would imagine that you are, first of all, I'm going to misquote you here, but you basically said that you've done 100% inbound over the last few years. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
That's quite a statement. And I would imagine, I could be wrong, that you also get more inbound than clients that you're able to take on.
There are times that that's true. It's not always the case, but
Okay.
one advantage in that scenario is you get to pick and choose who you work with.
Yeah. So my next question is how do you do that? Like, what does a good client look like for you from your perspective?
Well, you learn a little bit about your ICP, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
and you start to learn, like, okay, people who are bootstrapped are not a good prospect for you because of XYZ, or people who are 5,000 employees plus are not a good prospect for you because of XYZ. You start to learn, what type of attitude and philosophy you need in an executive partner that would be good, for you to collaborate with, and who's going to be a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Right. So you can start to turn down some of those opportunities that you just feel like are off. And then what you can do is you can refer them out to other people that you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit of an unspoken rule amongst, some of us who are on our own and doing consulting and stuff like that. Like, if I send Ben a lead and Ben closes it, he sends me 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, some of these deals for people close are $100,000, $200,000. I send John Barrows a lead, he closes it for $250,000. I just got a big check potentially. My buddy Richard Harris does sales training for big corporate entities like Visa and big brands like that. I don't want anything to do with that stuff. So I refer that over to him. He closes it. Bang, I get a $10,000 check out of nowhere. I'd argue that that's even better than doing the work. I got paid for doing nothing but making an intro. Right? That's the beauty of this type of thing. So you're trying to find ways to maximize the return while expending yourself as little as humanly possible. That's what we all want to do, whether you want to admit it or not. I know that's what I want to do. My goal for 2023 is to maintain my income level while decreasing the amount that I work. That's my goal. My goal is not to grow my revenue. My goal is to maintain my revenue and stop working as hard for it.
How much do you work? And how much do you work in comparison to before you cut the W-2 cord?
I have never worked so little in my life, if I'm being honest with you. Because when I was a VP of sales, I was that person that was like 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kidding. That doesn't mean I was in the office the whole time.
Yeah.
That just means I was on. I'd wake up and do stuff, get into the office, work all day, leave later than I should, take a 2-hour break to have dinner and deal with my kids, and then flip my laptop up open for 2 or 3 more hours before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
That was my routine for 15 plus years. Now, I don't take calls on Fridays. Sometimes I don't take calls on Mondays. And I cram Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and work, pretty good hours on those days. But I don't take calls before 9 or 10 a.m. I don't take calls after 4 p.m. typically, right? I'm just not beholden to the same conditions that I was. So I'm chipping away. But there are times where, you go through sprints, and I have plenty of days that are still like 8 to 8 Zoom,
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be after 8 o'clock by the time I get off here today.
Mhm.
But this doesn't feel like work in the same way prospecting does, and running fucking demos does, and managing reps does.
Yeah.
Right. This is different to me. It's less cumbersome. It's more energy inducing than energy taking away.
Yeah.
Right.
So transitioning to something a little more concrete, maybe like a tactic. I've seen you share something before, and I think this has to do with positioning. But and I believe this is a direct quote of yours. You talk about demonstrated scarcity with accessibility increases value.
That's right. So what I mean by that is I always set myself up to be just under capacity. So every time somebody says, "Are you able to take on new clients right now?" I'm like, "Yes, but the window is tight."
Mm-hmm.
My capacity is 15 clients. I got 12 right now. I'm cool with 10 to 8, even 6. So if you want in, I need to know a little bit. So it does a few things. I think it increases my credibility because all these other people are working with me. And I'm not lying, by the way. So let's get that part out of the way. It's not like I'm bullshitting somebody. That's actually where I'm kind of sitting. So demonstrates credibility, creates a tiny sense of urgency, like somebody has to make a decision pretty quick because I only have the capacity to sign 3 people by January 1st. And I'm God knows how many people I'm talking to, right? I only have room for 3, right? And I think that that's what you want. And then I back it up by insane levels of accessibility. I would challenge anybody on LinkedIn that you know that responds to more people than I do. Nobody sends me a DM that isn't spam and doesn't get a response.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody texts me, I text like a 13-year-old child. You get a response in like 5 minutes. I don't care what platform it is. DM me on Twitter, tag me on LinkedIn, text me, Slack me, whatever. I reply to everything. And so it gives this vibe and this aura off of like, this dude really wants to help. He's always there when I need him. I put up the bat signal and bang, Batman is there, right? And it's like, he's always on. And that is rare, right? And that's like somebody doing something a little bit above and beyond and a little bit, extra. And I really don't think that it's very hard, frankly. And everybody asks me all the time, like, how do you respond to everybody? I prioritize it.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I prioritize responding to people and giving them answers. So tomorrow morning, maybe there's people who send me a DM on LinkedIn. They ask me a question. They say, hey, thanks for doing that. Have a question about my own situation. You get a response 100% of the time from somebody like me. So I'm disseminating knowledge and giving out kind of the secrets, if you will, in advance. I don't wait for somebody to pay me. I'm just like, hey, I'm here to help. If you ever want to do this like more regularly, let me know.
I'm curious, because at this point you've grown your business to, I think you said you work with maybe around up to 15 clients at a time, something like that, which is significant. What does your tech stack look like? Can you share anything about that?
This will be a very unpopular opinion. I spend money on almost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a CRM. I use Excel.
Yeah.
I don't have an enablement platform because I don't prospect. I don't have a conversational intelligence tool because I don't need my calls recorded.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I don't need it. But beyond that, I don't need to pay for all these tools because I have built relationships for a long time in this world. And any category of a sales tool that you could bring up, I for sure can get a free license because of the work that I've done and the amount of help and, the amount of referrals I send people and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it goes back to like your brand again and the influence that you can wield. So in my communities, people will come to me and they'll be like, hey, I need a tool for contracts. What do you think about DocuSign versus PandaDoc? And I'm like, PandaDoc. Here's why. Boom, boom, boom. Gustavo didn't like that answer, but you get the point, right? Who should I pick, HubSpot or Salesforce? Well, Salesforce. Here's why. Da-da-da. All right. So, but I don't use tools. My buddy Justin Welsh, who some of you probably know, he's all about tools, all about automation. He spends money and time on all that shit. I don't do any of that stuff. We're very different in this regard.
Yeah.
He's like a machine to me. He's like a cyborg. And I'm the antithesis of that. I'm a human being. And I mean that in a very loving way. He's a good friend of mine. But I don't want to use all that stuff. Right. So I pay for an invoicing tool.
Right.
I have to pay for Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I have to pay for Google Suite. I have one employee. I have to pay for Gusto. Like that's not like a sales tech stack. That's like admin bullshit, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's it. I don't use tools. Name a tool, I don't use it. Or I get it for free. And even then I probably don't use it.
Love it.
Unpopular opinion. I understand.
No, I love it. And again, transitioning here. So a lot of people listening to this and here in the meeting, they're just getting started with their first sales side hustles, largely thanks to their involvement in Bravado Flex, which is connecting them with those opportunities. Many of us, maybe not all of us, but many of us also have full-time positions. Like any thoughts or advice around like, how do you, at least initially, before you're ready to cut the W-2 cord, like how do you balance your side hustle with a full-time?
Well, number one, you have to be really good at your regular job.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I tell people is if you're not doing really well in your current job, you shouldn't be worrying about and thinking about side hustles too much.
Yeah.
You got to have, there's like this anchor tenant philosophy in commercial real estate. If you don't know what that means is in every strip mall, there's one store that like brings everybody there and all the other stores are just get like the spillover, right? So you have to be really good at your regular job. That's the anchor tenant. So get really good at your regular job, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find time in your day before work, after your normal kind of job, the weekend or whatever. And that's when you spend time working on these other things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I'm Ben and Ben is, into marketing and whatnot, and Ben's building his brand and he has built relationships through growing his network with me, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Ben and I are talking, we're texting because we're buddies. And he's like, hey man, have you ever thought about doing XYZ with surf and sales? Or have you ever thought about doing this with Thursday night sales? I'm the type of person that's like, I don't know how to do shit when it comes to marketing or tech or whatever. I know the things I'm good at and I focus on that. So Ben comes to me and is like, listen, I have a way to like build your surf and sales brand way more. I'd love to help you with it. Now he's engaged in a conversation. He can moonlight and do that stuff outside of his regular Bravado job. So that's how I structured it. It was like when I went to the office, I was working for Quali. I was working for Main Street Hub. But once I left the office, that's my fucking time. I do whatever I want with it. Right? What difference does it make if I'm spending that time selling for somebody else or building my own thing? Nobody would get mad if my side hustle was a bartender. Would your CEO get mad if you went to bartend tonight or drive an Uber? No. So why would they get mad if you're making phone calls for somebody else?
No, I think they would respect the hustle.
I would hope so. Some don't. So I think the day and age, is ending here soon, where some of us accept going to work for somebody who doesn't approve, actively discourages, or worse, terminates you if you're working on other projects. To me, it's none of their business whatsoever. If I'm doing my job for you, what I do in my own time is irrelevant to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's that's the CEO of the future, how they think.
Mhm.
Hey, iPhone 18, Dwight, if you could keep yourself on mute a little bit, that would be helpful. Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Regulating, Ben. I'm regulating.
Yes, thank you. Nothing against you, iPhone 18 Dwight. All right. So in a moment, by the way, if anybody else has questions, feel free to share them in the chat and we'll make time for them at the end. I do think that many of us would be interested to hear a little bit more about the types of engagements that you take on these days, like not at the beginning of your cut the W-2 journey, but today, yesterday, whatever your most recent consulting gig that you took on was. Like what types of what is the product? Like what are the deliverables, if any?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of those do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things you don't want to do is get into hourly pricing. Nobody is paying you for the amount of time it takes you to get XYZ done. They're just paying you for the outcome. If you get yourself into a situation where it's hourly, you're in big trouble because they're going to complain that it took you too long, or you're going to get it done too fast and hose yourself and not get the full dollar amount. You see what I'm saying? So I don't do this hourly pricing thing. I don't want to track it. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to track that it took me 37 seconds to send you an email and then bill you for that. What you want to do is you want to get into retainer-based monthly pricing with 3 to 6 to 12 month contracts. Because what you're trying to do is replicate some stability for yourself, right? You're trying to turn yourself into MRR basically, right? You want to avoid project-based deadlines. You know why? Let's say I'm working on a project with Olivia and we're collaborating, okay? We're co-authoring all this stuff. If we have a time box deadline, what happens if she's the blocker and we miss our deadline? Guess what happens? I'm fucked. I don't get paid on time or I look bad. So I don't agree to any of that stuff. I straight up tell people no way, not doing that. I will not be the blocker, but I don't know you at all and how you operate. And I refuse to miss a deadline because it took you too long to get something back to me. So I don't do this time box deadline thing. I don't do these deliverables. People try to lock you in and say, hey, I want you to 3x our pipeline size. I want you to double our, inbounds, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not signing up for that deal. No way. Right. What I will do is say, here's the right way to do things. Here's the right way to build all this stuff. Here's the right way to sell it. Here's the right way to teach the team how to do it. But I'm not managing those people. I'm not making James make the right amount of calls. I'm not making Gustavo run his demo the right way. How can I be on the hook for performance when I'm not the one managing and making sure this sales script that we wrote together is actually being followed? Yeah. So I don't sign up for those kind of deals, right? Another thing, try to get paid sooner rather than later. One of the things that you'll be shocked to learn is the larger the company, the more they fuck with you on actually paying your invoice. They'll hold it forever. This blew my mind when I first got started. You think to yourself oh, I'm working with this super prestigious company. They'll pay on time. No, they won't. I burnt a lot of time and energy, basically being Dog the Bounty Hunter and trying to collect on people. It's brutal. So get paid up front. Doesn't mean the whole thing up front necessarily, but at the start of every month and at the start when you start doing some of the work. Don't wait till the very end. I've had people skip town on me, owing me tens of thousands of dollars before, and basically daring me to go after them.
Jeez.
Because they know I don't want to go after them, right? So these are some of the mistakes, that people have made, and I would encourage people not to make. Do it a little bit differently, right? You don't want this one-time fee You want to turn yourself into recurring revenue. So come up with a monthly amount and the things that you're going to work on. Don't box yourself into a deadline or specific deliverables. Get an agreement for a few months so you have time to demonstrate, the impact, and you're off and running. Those are some tactical things that I would recommend.
There you go. Thanks for that. But before we transition into questions from everybody here, and it's okay if not, anything else you might want to add at this time?
Well, one of the things that you said was like, what type of engagements are the right ones for me? I mean, I work with basically Series A startups. I work with Series A founders, and sometimes they're head of sales, or I help them find a head of sales. I basically take people who have found some level of product market fit in founder-led selling and help them build and scale a sales organization from scratch. That's what I've done. 6 times I was a VP of sales and took a company from 0 to 25 million in ARR. I did it in under 3 years every single time. And I just did that sprint over and over and over. And so I didn't try to reinvent the wheel with my consulting business. I just said, that's my ICP. Companies who are trying to do this, I'm just going to do that thing over and over and over and over again. So now when you've done it so many times, I have this catalog of assets on top of just instinctually knowing what to do. So guess what? I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. I sign up Nathaniel's company tomorrow. I know exactly what we're going to work on. There's nuances, sure, depending on what the product is and things like that, but it's a lot of repetition, and repetition makes it a little easier every single time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. So thanks again, Scott. Let's take a look at some of the questions. We got some questions in the chat, and some people shared in a Google form we shared in advance.
Okay.
Some of them are directly related to the subject matter we've been talking about, and some are more like general sales questions. So here is one that it's more on the general sales question side. Shared in advance. Somebody said, I constantly see people who are overperformers, get hired into management only to really stink it up and go back into an individual contributor role. What qualities do you, or I suppose, did you hire for when leading a sales team? Crushing quota is not one that seems to be very reliable. Like, any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, quota attainment, I wouldn't say it's totally irrelevant. Somebody has to, I think, have proven themselves to be good at selling the particular product. You're not going to get promoted. You shouldn't get promoted into leadership if you suck and can't sell a particular product. But you don't have to be, number one. For me, I was always looking for somebody who got more fulfillment out of helping somebody else than they did doing something themselves. That's number one. You're looking for people who have charisma, who have, charm, who have the ability to teach and coach and mentor. You can watch people on your sales floor who are individual contributors who are doing well, and you see them on the side at lunch. They've got, Gustavo under their arm, and they're just like talking to them and giving them some tips and tricks and that kind of thing. And Olivia closes the deal and they're the first one to congratulate them, right? You're also looking for somebody who has a data-centric kind of mind. The higher up you go, the more people care about your analytical skills, for lack of a better word. Because you have to sort of try to find a way to codify what works. So the higher up you go, you can't just be like, oh, we just do it like this and that's what works. So you're looking for people who have an analytical brain, who know how to talk to like the metrics and the conversion percentages, or have ideas about territory splits or recruiting funnel things. And so you start to see people gravitate towards some aspect of leadership and higher level kind of operating. And that gives you a clue like, okay, Alex has this capacity. Mike is interested in this stuff and could help me over here. Nathaniel is really good at this sales ops kind of shit that I suck at. He would be a good addition to my leadership team because he complements me in this kind of way. So I'm looking for those types of attributes.
Mhm.
Hope I answered that question the right way.
Yeah, it seems fairly clear. Probably have time for a couple of questions. We're coming up on the top of the hour. Nathaniel, I see that you asked a question in the chat. Do you want to ask it yourself?
Yeah, sure. I do SDR coaching on the side, and I was curious. You had mentioned not charging hourly, or like not getting stuck in an hourly cycle. Would hourly still make sense in a coaching setting where you're actually spending time live with somebody?
No, you're damaging your ability to earn, because somebody has to proactively decide they want to use you. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm paying you $500, I paid you $500 in January, I'm on the hook now to make sure I use you. But if it's pay as I go, it's easier for me to have one phone call and be like, you know what, I'm going to skip this week. I got drunk last night and I don't feel like making the call. I want to skip town and go to the lake and go wakeboarding this week. You see what I'm saying? So you find people who are more committed by getting them to lock into this particular amount, right? And then they actually use what they've paid for. And you want to spend your time as a coach with people who are more serious, right? Nod your head.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you do. Okay. So people who are more serious are willing to plunk down X amount, right? So then they say, well, what do I get for $500 a month? Well, what you get is you get 1 hour call every single week and unlimited asynchronous communication, like text me, email me as often as you want. So that offering makes it sound like, wow, I have access to Nathaniel 24/7. How many people out of 100 do you think actually take advantage of what your full offer is?
Hardly any.
Zero.
Oh yeah, because no one's getting your unlimited time. Yeah.
But you're putting it out there. You see what I'm saying? You can have as much time for me as you want, not on Zoom, but you can text me anytime you want. You can Slack me anytime you want. You can email me anytime you want, Nathaniel. I will get back to you and I will answer you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you have predictable revenue. Because now it's not like, well, I don't know how much Olivia is going to use me this month. I don't know how much Tanvir is going to spend with me. No, Olivia spent 500, Tanvir spent 500, Scott spent 500. Bang, that's $1,500 that you just made this month, Nathaniel. That just paid your mortgage. You just paid your mortgage off of 3 clients, 3 phone calls a week. And you could time those phone calls so it's a good use of your time. You know when I do some of those calls? When I'm sitting at my kid's soccer practice, when I'm driving to my kid's baseball game on the weekend. Seriously, that's how I use some of that time. Anybody who has kids knows the pain of sitting there waiting for their kids' practice to be over. You can fucking monetize that time. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Scott, I believe you mentioned that your folks are coming into town tonight. Do you have a hard stop in a couple minutes or a few minutes or so?
I should be a little bit mindful, but I could take a few more questions. Yeah.
Okay. Mike, thanks for asking a question or two in the chat. Do you mind asking your question verbally? Maybe you can, if you feel like it, you can turn on your camera too. If Mike's not with us, maybe we'll move on to the next question. Tanvir.
Yeah, hey Scott.
Hey.
Longtime follower, big time fan.
Oh, thanks, man.
So, I've had some good years in sales from SDR through now AE for 3 years in a row. But where I've always been at, I have this podcast that I work on the side and potential coaching that I can do. But I'm the type of personality that's sort of like an all-in personality. So like when I'm competitive, try to be number one. Thankfully was number one, last year in my team, will be number one this year again. But my question is basically around a side hustle bleeding into a full-time job. And when I start to think about like my podcast or sort of doubling down on the side hustle piece of it, it's like very hard to not let those thoughts get involved into what I'm doing maybe day to day with my full-time job. And I'm just wondering if you've ever been through a situation where your side hustle like bleeds into your full-time, and how you balance those two things together, knowing full well that one day you want to make your side hustle your full-time gig.
Well, I think there's certain seasons where you're making sacrifices in other areas of your life to get some of that stuff done. You know, you're not going out with friends on the weekends, or you're not doing XYZ, you're spending time on this particular project. So I think we're all at risk of that, Tanvir. I'm sure that I've run into that before. I've certainly found myself saying yes to too many different things and trying to do too many different things at once, and then having to be like, okay, this one ROI is actually kind of shitty. I should get rid of that one and focus more on this kind of one. One of the things that I would tell you is try to get into like a regular kind of cadence with the podcast and the coaching. So it's X number of episodes a week or a month, and you're trying to get, 30K this year in sponsorship dollars from the podcast, and that's like your goal. And then on the coaching side, you're trying to have 2 or 3 clients a month and bring in another 30K from that. And then your regular job, you're committed to trying to be number one. You make 150 grand from that. That's, 210 for the year, and attain that thing. And once you've done that, now you start to think, okay, how could I do that, but scratch and sniff a little bit more from the podcast, a little bit more from coaching? Could I raise my price from coaching so it's the same amount of time, but a bigger ROI? What can I do on the podcast to increase the amount, of ROI that I get, or direct revenue from it? Or is there something else that I could be doing? What if I got rid of the podcast and could suddenly take on double or triple the amount of coaching clients? Does that make sense? So you're always doing this kind of dance of juggling these different things, figuring out what's really profitable for you and where you enjoy spending your time. And you have to learn to let certain things go sometimes, right? And it's that experimentation part that is kind of part of the fun, frankly.
Awesome. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
And it seems like we might have the opportunity to help Mike, who mentioned in
Okay,
the-
Mike, bring it.
that he's driving. But I'll read it for you, Mike. Mike says, what advice would you give to someone who's interviewing for their first ever account manager role tomorrow? What would you brush up on in order to get the job?
What would I brush up on for account management role? Your interview's tomorrow. It's too late. It's too late, dog. You're driving around already. I don't know where you're going. I would not brush up on anything right now. I'm not a big believer in like, when everybody crammed the night before a test. I don't think you absorb much of that. You might have been able to memorize something just to pass it on the test, but you didn't learn shit. So now is not the time to brush up on that stuff. You should have brushed up on that stuff a week or so ago. I don't have a good answer for you on this one, man. I really don't.
Well, Mike, I know your question was for Scott, but I'll share that in my experience, the best way I found to prepare for an interview is less about brushing up on things and more about thinking about what questions you want to ask. What questions do you want to ask them?
That's good feedback.
Okay, so before we hop off, I've said it a couple times, but Scott, thanks so much for doing this.
Welcome.
By the way, we haven't even talked about it, but we'll share information about it afterwards. But Scott recently launched a course called the Untethered Blueprint, which, well, actually, Scott, maybe you can share a little bit about it if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's just designed to help people start their side hustle and take your skills and your expertise and turn it into a product or a service that you can monetize. And partnered up with my friend Ryan Walker on it. One of the things we talk about is the importance and the power of having a partner, so you're not having to do all of the work. I have lots of different side businesses and whatnot, and a lot of them have partners where we're sharing some of the burden. So Tanvir, part of the answer to what you're talking about is, I don't do everything myself, right? I don't need 100% of the surf and sales revenue, because if it was just me, I wouldn't even be able to run that business. So, I just walk through like some of the tactics in terms of, how to structure the engagement, how to build a brand, how to diversify your income, why inbound is better than outbound, cash versus equity. I know somebody in the chat talked about board seats and whether equity counts as a stream of income. Talk about how to not get sucked into the world of deliverables and things like this. So, anybody I think who's at a place in their career where they've got good experience, they've been successful, this could be something that is an inexpensive way to get some direct, coaching and information about, how you can do this. And I'm not very special. I just figured out a way and started executing on all these little things. And, I'm just trying to teach other people how to do that. So if you got time and interest to check it out, it's called the Untethered Blueprint. And I think there's a Bravado discount. So if you type in Bravado in the code, you should get a little discount, which you can take advantage of. So
awesome. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Again, this was our inaugural Flex Talk or Flex Talks. We might have to think about some better branding for what we're going to call these. But right now the plan is we'll do the next one in late January, but more info to follow on that in the weeks to come. I hope everyone has a good night.
all right, everybody. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.